Good evening, everyone. It's 5:30, so I'm going to call this meeting to order. Welcome, everyone. So we're going to start with our roll call, shall we?
Yes, ma'am. Jeff Lawrence.
Here.
Cindy Scroggins.
Here.
Holly Rickert.
Here.
Tim Dooley.
Here.
Steve Thomas.
Here.
Janice Menking.
Here.
Jim Giroux. Daryl Whitworth.
Thank you. So we still have a quorum. We will continue on. We're going to go to item number 4, which is public comments. So at this time, we would invite anyone to make any public comments they'd like to on either on items that are on the agenda or not. We invite you to make comments up to 3 minutes, or anyone who wants to speak. So is there anyone here who would like to make comments this evening? Do we have anybody online?
No, ma'am.
All right, thank you all. Then we'll go to item number 5A, public hearing Z 2207, request by Jeffrey Moran and Mary Eckert, applicants to consider the following. A land use change from industrial to commercial on property located at 1603 and 1605 East Main Street and Lot C-1RB of the Moran Park Subdivision 2. And 2, a zoning change from M2 medium manufacturing to C2 commercial on property located at 1603 and 1605 East Main Street and Lot C1RB of the Moran Park Subdivision 2. I would entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
A motion by Tim. Do I have a second? Second by Polly. Any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right. Mr. Moore here. I thought I saw you earlier, but you were blocked over here. All right. Aye.
Would like to present our property here, which is right next door over here, 1603 and 1605. We'd like to request it be changed from the light manufacturing to commercial C2. And just for the, mainly because of all the other uses we will be able to use it for, the property for. We don't have any major, right now we're going to have, in the property right next door, we have an accountant coming in to lease the front part of it. And the rest of us can be the same. We don't have any drastic changes in my property, which is two buildings down. I need to rework the front of it a little bit and lease it out, but it may just be for offices and stuff like that. I'd just like to request it for a C2, which we think would fit be better use for the property zoning up here in the front over light manufacturing.
All right. Thank you. We'll see if we have any comments and get staff to make comments and see if we have any questions. Thanks, Sam.
All right.
Is there anyone here who wants to make any comments on this application?
I move we go out of public hearing back into regular session.
Second. All right. Motion by Tim, a second by Polly. Any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, Shelby, you're going to make this presentation.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commission. I think Mr. Moore did a great job summarizing the project here. Overall, they're requesting a land use and a zoning change, specifically zoning change to C2. After staff's review, we find that that is compatible with the uses that are already occurring there along Industrial Loop. And specifically, given that it has frontage on 290 East, staff recommends approval.
All right, thank you. Anybody have any questions or comments?
I move we approve it as presented.
Second. I have a motion by Tim and a second by Polly. Any discussion?
Can we get a motion on each, one on the land use and one
All
on
right.
zoning, please?
Thank you.
All right, let's do, what do you want first, Daniel? Whatever. What's on the
Action
agenda
item
first?
B1.
Land use would be first. and
Okay.
then-
Action item B1.
I move we approve the land use change as presented.
Second. All right. We'll have I have a motion and a second on action item B1, the land use change. Is there any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
I move we approve the zoning change as presented. This item.
Second. All right, so I have a motion and a second on action item number B2, the zoning change. Is there any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, motion carried. That was a tough one, Tim. No. Sam, all right. Jeffrey, I keep getting the Morans wrong. Mr. Moran. Mr. Moran. I'll just start saying Mr. Moran. All right, then let's go to the next item, which would be 5C, Site Plan 2206. Consider a site plan for a short-term rental facility located at, wait a minute, I have to turn it over, 639 Post Oak Street. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Harmony Grogan. I am the architect for the proposed project at 639 Post Oak Road. Michael Meek is the owner. He was not able to attend tonight, but his son, Joe Meek, is in the attendance if you have questions for him. The property is 0.72 acres, is zoned C1 neighborhood commercial. There is an existing structure of approximately 2,000 square feet that we propose to remodel and to convert to business office use. In addition to that, we want to add 7 efficiency dwelling units. These would be short-term rental units that are all under 400 square feet in size. Of those 7 units, 1 of those would be accessible, so it would meet all ADA regulations. We've provided 5 parking spaces for the office and 7 parking spaces for the STR units, for a total of 12 parking spots. We have a 20-foot wide drive that runs along the south side of the property to access for circulation throughout the property and to parking. This application was originally submitted in March 2022, so we are vested in the 2018 STR ordinances and zoning. Thank you.
Thank you. Shelby, you have a presentation?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Harmony. That was a fabulous summary. As she had mentioned, they're adding 7 efficiency units to this property. So staff reviewed the site plan for conformity with section 7.131, the review and evaluation criteria for site plans. As you can see, it meets the zoning requirements, impervious cover, the parking calculations. It did require 1 parking space per unit, plus 1 space per 400 square feet of the office use that went with the building. They met those requirements. There's water and sanitary sewer available to serve the site. There is a screening and a landscape requirement, so staff does recommend approval based on the landscape plan to include the screening, approval of civil construction plans, as well as park dedication of $500 per unit, paid prior to issuance of building permits.
All right, thanks, Shelby. Anybody have any questions?
Yes, a couple questions.
Yes,
The property at 639, just to the 633, just to the north of this property, what is that zoned?
It's R2.
It's R2. And then the property to the south, 651, is that the new R1A development
It is.
that's going in right there?
Yes, ma'am.
And the pool is on the side facing the R2 property, correct?
It is. It will be screened, though, with a wall to meet code of, fencing and borders around it.
That's what I was gonna ask, is what kind of screening are you gonna have
Yeah.
for all of it?
Well, we will certainly provide fencing along the north, east, and south walls. I think that material has yet to be determined, but we will have screening.
So as part of the screening requirement, it requires a minimum of 6 feet in height, and it requires either wood or masonry fence. In addition, they could add any type of hedge-like material to go along with that screening requirement.
I would strongly prefer a masonry one near where the pool is in order to deflect any noise away from the R2 side.
Sure.
From the neighbors, and I'd probably suggest that be 8 feet instead of 6 feet, because you're gonna have lighting in the pool and stuff, so you're gonna have some light pollution potentially to run over into the R2 property. So that would be my thought process, is to just where the pool section is between the front building and the start of those STRs on that side would be sufficient just to deflect both noise and light.
Sure.
Anyone else have comments, questions?
I'm not very good at reading maps, but how is this going to dovetail into your stuff, Jacob? Or Mark, excuse me. You might as well let him earn his keep.
Minor conflict of interest. I'm representing both parties.
Are you really?
We actually worked with Mr. Meek early on and knew this was coming, and he actually is paying for the sewer line that is stubbed to his property. And so this actually abuts, there's actually an old easement, an access easement through the house to the east. And so this driveway will still tie into that house, give them this site, which is north of Post Oak Village, we are constructing an 8-foot fence, which is 6 feet on our side, 8 feet on their side.
Oh, okay.
So we have a little
And
retaining,
So you
Retaining
have
rock
the
retaining
screening
wall.
there as well.
Yes.
It's gonna
so,
back
yeah,
up, it's gonna back up to to the new subdivision.
That driveway is adjacent to the backyard of the houses.
Yes.
That's fine.
But you've got this fence sounds high enough, 8 foot on on this property side, 6 foot on the resident side.
Yes.
Are they going to be the same kind of fence? Silly question.
Well, Jacob, GT Development, I'm sorry, 10-8 Properties through GT Development in the house construction will be constructing a wood privacy fence.
Yeah.
And they'll do that as they build the houses down the street.
Okay, thank you.
All right, no more questions.
Are you ready for a motion?
I'll
You make it
okay.
with your
Yes.
specifications, please.
So I move that we approve SP 2206 for the short-term rental facility located at 639 Post Oak Street with the recommendations from staff, 1 through 3, and the addition of a 8-foot tall masonry wall along the pool between the front building and the very first short-term rental on the north side of the property.
All right, have a motion by Polly. Do I have a second?
A second.
Second by Cindy. Any other discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right. Carries, thank you. Let's go to item number 5D, which is P 2217, the final plat of Botanica, 13.81 acre subdivision located at 802 Friendship Lane. Good evening.
Evening, Commissioners. My name is Matthew Hobick. I'm with KFW Engineers. We are the engineer on the project. Site I believe, should look familiar to most of y'all. I think the site plan approval was about 6 months ago, in December. And so KFW did not submit that site plan change, but we were hired to do the engineering associated with it. So since then, we've been putting together the plat and the construction plans, which are currently in review, city staff. As far as plat goes, this is a fairly minor one. It's a 1-lot plat for multifamily project. So I don't have much more than that, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you. All right, Garrett, are you going to talk about this one or Shelby? Shelby's going to do it. All right.
Sure. So as he had mentioned, this property actually received site plan approval back in December. So y'all probably remember that multifamily project that came through. So in addition to that, there is a requirement for it to be platted, and they're going through that plat process now. It is important to note that this plat requires park dedication. In addition, the plat requires park dedication of $500. The multifamily development will also pay park dedication at a later date as part of prior to this approval of their building permit. So 2 separate requirements for park dedication, and then civil construction plan approval is required, as well as an approved TIA, a traffic impact analysis, and then payment of the park plan dedication fees. And staff recommends approval.
Okay. Anybody have any questions or comments on this one?
What about Mr. Musselman's fence?
That fence was approved. There was an 8-foot fence approved as part of the site plan. In your packet, I included the original notice of action. And in the notice of action, specifically the staff brief, I believe that is page 45.
What page?
It talks about screening.
Page 40.
45.
That agreement is still in place.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
I move we approve it as presented with staff's recommendations and limitations. That's what.
A second.
Motion by Tim, second by Jeff. Any other discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right.
Oh, by the way, when are you gonna start? Do you know?
Most likely sometime this year. But,
If you wouldn't put that corn out there, Tom.
yeah, thanks. I would appreciate it. If for things available.
All right, let's go to item number 5E. P 2219 preliminary plat of Harmony Hills 21-acre subdivision located at 668 Pico Road. You're up, Mr. Cornell.
And you're making all kinds of money tonight, aren't you?
I was hoping Shelby would give this presentation. He's much better at these than I. This is a 21 acre subdivision. These will be R1 lots we annexed into the city this last year. And some of these they're about 8,500 plus square feet. So some of them are larger. It accesses entirely, would you scroll down just a little bit, entirely off of Pica. And one of the comments that's in the staff report, which they pointed out to me, is the roads are a little bit longer than the guidance of maximum block length. But that had changed. We had one single entrance on the right, and that actually reduced the overall block length. But whenever we, for fire protection, added another entrance, it actually extended length. So now we're approaching 1360, I believe. I don't remember the actual number. And I think the guidance is 1200. So we would really like to keep that, allow it to still occur. And everything else is going to be relatively standard R1 zoning. I do have a representative, one of the owners is here, Clint Pond.
All right, thank you. Shelby?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. And thank you, Mark. You did a fabulous job. As Mark had mentioned, we've received a preliminary plat application for this subdivision here on Pica. I'm sorry, I'm trying to zoom in here. Okay. This preliminary plat has a creation of 3 new roadways, Treaty, Grace, and Unity Lane. The 2 will take access off Pica and provide that future connection back there at the back. Utilities, easements, standard easements such as site visibility, stormwater detention, that'll be addressed as part of the construction plans. Park dedication is required at $500 per lot. Staff will address that as a condition as well as part of the final plat. They will have to come back for a final plat. Construction plans are also required. He touched on the 1,200-foot block length maximum. Staff plans to work with the applicant through the final plat process and civil construction plans to address that. I know Mark has some concerns as well. And ultimately, staff recommends approval based on the conditions listed.
Thank you, Shelby. Anybody have questions?
Oh, yeah. Of course I do. The property to the east,
Yes.
0. What is that? Zoned?
I believe that's the, I don't know if the zoning classification for mobile.
Just as the
It
entire-
shows up as R4. So that's the Windmill Oaks
That's
development.
Windmill Oaks. Okay.
So the eastern portion of that property has been developed. The western portion is still undeveloped.
Right, right. And then the property to the west of this parcel is what right now?
That is still outside the city limits. So as Mark mentioned, the subject tract was annexed earlier this year.
Yeah.
So that still remains outside the city limits.
So probably my bigger question is, it's gonna be around the length of that road, the street length. Just from, I'd be wondering if there's a way to not put that access street so far back into the subdivision, to do it more at like the midpoint of the subdivision on that west side. You're just, because you're, I'm trying to think forward to when the next parcel gets brought in and it gets developed.
It will actually, we've already met with those owners, and it would actually look exactly like this one, but flipped over.
Okay.
And
So then we're facing another really long,
well,
street.
that is a guidance length, but there are many, many streets in Fredericksburg that exceed that length.
yeah, we're aware of that. It's not necessarily mean it's a good thing.
Right, but that's
So
a
I don't know
guidance.
that I want to keep repeating something that we don't like just because we've done it. So breaking the street up a little bit more, because if you're looking at this from a mass standpoint, even in R1, these are relatively standard R1s. If you look in the older part of the city, your blocks are not nearly as long, so it breaks everything up more often. This gives you a real long length, long stretches of just houses without any kind of a break. So I'm just thinking in terms of both from a moving around within the neighborhood and potentially accessing the adjacent neighborhood. If that could be somehow moved a little further forward to where it breaks up the mass, plus it gives a little bit quicker access where you're not penetrating through the entire neighborhood to get that access to the next parcel. So thinking from a vehicle movement, pedestrian movement, breaking up the mass, if y'all could find a way to move that cross street closer to Pica and not so far back into your development, at least break up one side. You're gonna have one long road and then you'll have one that has a break in it.
And that we can, I mean, we had spoke to the adjacent neighbor, and they were wanting to keep, again, they ideally would do an R1 just like this if it's
Right.
successful. But if in a substreet, I've got an example, one in Oaks and Windcrest, there was a substreet stubbed out to the neighborhood to the west arbitrarily, and both sides, it's not a good thing. And,
Yeah, well,
it
I'm
didn't work out.
I'm just asking y'all as you're looking through this to look at kind of how that ultimate through the neighborhood traffic flow goes, because this is putting cars very deep in the neighborhood before they find another exit point. That's a bit concerning, because now you're talking about a residential street with pedestrians and children and bicycles, and then you're pushing a car, 1,200 feet before it finds another access, an exit point. And I just don't think that allows them to gain a whole lot of speed. It can be potentially dangerous for the residents if you've got cars traveling at a higher speed trying to get down a long road. And these guys know better than I do, but the longer your road is without a break, the faster the cars are going to go. And so you're encouraging the traffic to exceed the speed limit in the neighborhood by giving them that much of a distance before they get an exit. So just be thinking about that. I'm sure staff will be bringing that to your attention as well, but these are some things that we have to think about, is that this is primarily people and that having long lanes for cars to travel tends to make them drive like they're on Creek Street. So I know it's not a resolved issue, so I guess that's more of a direction to staff than anything else,
Yes, ma'am.
but shorter would be better.
And we have been working with the property owner to the north, and they're the ones who would like to buy those 3 lots. That's why those are like that. And so they did not want a street stuff to them.
Right. Right. That doesn't go all the way to the Windcrest easement, does it?
No.
You're still short of that by the next
Significant.
neighbor?
Right, we are to the southwest of Heritage.
Yeah.
Not to the north.
Yeah. Okay.
So their intent is to utilize those for their family usage.
Where's the easement for the extension of Smokehouse in this?
That would be, 1,200
far
feet
away?
to the east.
It's actually on the east side of Windmill Oaks, so a whole nother track to the east.
It's,
Okay.
okay, so it's this one way over here.
Yes, ma'am.
That's the smokehouse one.
Yes, ma'am.
Show me.
It's that,
Okay.
that slit right there.
Fine. When do we have any idea when that's going to happen?
Yeah.
What's going to trigger it?
Oh, smokehouse, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Sorry.
Okay.
So there is a developer looking at the track to the east of Windmill Oaks, and that will be the trigger.
And is
That
that,
that is a dedicated easement? Is that correct?
It's an easement. It's not public right of way.
Okay.
So that'll be part of the
So
discussion with the
somebody's-
developer.
It's gonna be on private property until they ask to be annexed? Is that what you're telling me?
Say that again?
Fine. Are they gonna have to, that is going to be a street no matter what, correct?
Yet to be determined.
Okay,
But that'll be part of the discussion with the developer.
okay.
And I anticipate a traffic impact analysis being required to look at impacts to the adjacent roadways. So that it definitely could be triggered.
Okay, I'm just,
and
you stand there and you look, you go down Smokehouse and you look straight down the way and you can see where it's going. It's just a question of when.
Yes, sir.
I mean, that's what we're all here to plan, to make sure that it does, and that's why.
Very similar discussion with Windcrest, same
Absolutely,
situation.
same thing.
Yes, sir.
And so that's my second. Is this little zero up at the top of the R4, is that the Windcrest extension route?
No, that's another outlot road. It runs along the south side of Oaks of Windcrest, so it's really obsolete.
Okay,
The focus has been Smokehouse and Windcrest in this
Right.
area.
right,
So that will probably go away as part of this
Okay.
development.
okay. Yeah, just looking at, are we gonna have a street to nowhere somewhere here?
One of the biggest challenges in this part of the world is drainage. It's drainage, the drainage goes all the way to Live Oak, so everything y'all are talking about is carrying a massive amounts of drainage
To the
So-
northeast,
to the south.
to the south?
So we are dealing with a tremendous amount of drainage through this development. It's coming all the way from Live Oak.
Oh, it's coming to you?
Yes, and so, that will probably play into all of the variables you're talking about. Because not only does it come from the west side of Heritage, it's also coming from the east side of Heritage School. And so there are massively large variables to deal with as those
You mean
things
box
play.
culverts or what?
Well, we have a designed a large channel. It takes up a lot of real estate.
Yes.
So,
Is there gonna be a detention pond
well, we are looking at a very,
specked out at some point?
we have, two things of consideration. One is detention, but most all of our water is from off-site. So we're dealing with probably 90% of the drainage is coming through our site from other places. And so, we've done a very detailed study, and, staff has that, and that's part of the construction plan process, but it carries almost 1,000 CFS from off-site, which is a river.
Yeah,
So part of that is a routing formula, and how do you, in some cases, detention can actually do harm, because you're gonna hold it back and throw it out whenever the water's there.
it's still gonna,
And so
Yeah.
we are working with downstream property owners, as well as about doing some improvements. It's a big mess down there. So there's a lot of problems.
well, it looked easy to build when we annexed it.
No, but that's why it hadn't been developed before.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Anybody else?
Daniel, do we need to include that in our motion about addressing the length of the roads in our approval?
Well, your approval is going to approve the general layout that's before you, so, I mean,
If the street length
if
is
you're
an
going
issue,
to approve it
do we-
as, with the streets the way they are, you're essentially approving that as part of the preliminary plat approval, so, I mean, if you want to make it a comment to, you know, maybe encourage them to change it before final plat. I guess you could do that, but you can't really do that as a condition, unless you're gonna specify, like you have to put a road in here or some sort of condition. So you can either approve it with some conditions or deny it.
Little late.
The streets exceed the length, right?
By
Right
how
now?
much?
That's not a code, that's a guidance,
Okay.
it's just a guidance, it's not a codified.
I don't know, what does staff think? I mean, my view is that we're creating this long driveway for cars to zoom down, so.
I don't disagree. We've worked closely with Mark and the fire marshal on some access concerns and issues. And as Mark mentioned, at one time, there was only one access point proposed with a possible emergency access route. So they've kind of worked with staff and given us 2 access points. So the fire marshal is pleased with it. As you mentioned, it is kind of the massing concerns. So I
My
think
concern with changing it is we would, it's the same amount of street and same amount of lots. So for us, it really doesn't matter. But we do need to really work with the adjacent property owner because that was kind of our general person's agreement.
Yeah.
To stub it out there. And to us, it probably really doesn't make a difference.
Yeah,
But being that-
my concern is this becomes the city street, it becomes the city's responsibility and it's a bowling alley and.
I would be more concerned about the mile of Pica. It's gonna
I'm-
become a
well,
very busy road.
Trust me, there's a bunch of stuff that we have in our history that we don't really want to repeat necessarily, but, just thinking about, you know, street design and that you're gonna have, that's a lot of homes, that's a lot of pedestrians, that's a lot of potential children. And that's a really long stretch for a car to get a lot of speed going. And so if there's a way to design that street in a way to either break it up or slow it down,
Sounds like speed bumps to me.
well, and then of course we just
Come on
went,
there,
we
Gary.
just went through a course and said, if you're putting in speed bumps, it's because you have a bad street design. So when we're in the
Well,
design
I didn't
phase,
attend
think
that
about,
meeting. Thank you very much.
yeah, what's an appropriate street design to make sure that this is safe for all the people and children and,
So what are you asking him to do? Basically redesign the whole thing?
well, or at least you've got one road that's got this access coming off. And if you can get an agreement with the adjacent neighbor to move it closer to Pica to break that side street up, at least we limit the damage on one side. We won't limit it on both without taking out a couple of lots, which
That
I understand the
was gonna be my
economics
next
makes it a problem, but, I would like to see if y'all can figure out a way to meet with the adjacent landowner and take that access to the west and just move it further south.
Yeah. we
Where
have
you
no
don't
problem
really
with that.
sacrifice a lot, you just shift and it breaks the street up a bit more so that people slow down.
And on the same token, though, it does create a dead end at the end. Whereas in typical, if you're doing phased access, you try to have cross traffic, but you don't want to have hidden routes to get across.
Right.
So, you
Right.
know, that was kind of the idea originally, was that if somebody goes down the first street and there's another subdivision, they'll get there versus come back around and be looking for it.
Well, if this had been 2 adjacent 10 acres with a street in between them, we wouldn't be having this discussion. But
Well,
because it's a
we're
20 acre with nothing in between,
We're about 10% over the guidance.
yeah, you got a bit of excess. All right, I'll just leave it as a comment to staff that as you're working through this, figure out with them how we keep those streets from being 45-mile-an-hour speed zones through a neighborhood. That's because that's what they're gonna do. I mean, those are 40-foot wide streets, right?
yes.
Yeah. So they're gonna be, people are gonna drive 45 on this.
We can shrink
Understood.
to 30.
Mhm.
We can shrink to 30 if you
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna make him throw up over there by saying that, but yes,
Well, your
narrower,
impact study should tell you that, shouldn't it?
narrower streets tend to make the cars go slower because they can't see what's going on, and so they slow down, but wider streets make them go fast.
Well, and maybe that's something we look at, possibly with sidewalks or, well, we can discuss that more.
Something, or at least look at the street design to see how you can design the street to push the drivers to slow down and not end up with those hump things trying to take care of it later.
Understood.
Those hump things.
Yeah.
All right,
Okay,
let me,
I've said my piece.
let me ask another question. Are you or anybody associated with the adjacent property owner?
No,
Meaning,
meaning left and right and north and south, or?
well,
I
and
mean,
I'm,
we
what I'm
spoke
saying
to everybody.
is that, so you've got one corporation over here that owns this project, and you happen to own the interest in the other property with another corporation.
No,
You're talking about flipping things. I mean, is it
no,
Are you
there's been,
trying to develop it all under two different umbrellas or something like that?
no,
Okay.
that's, Steve Olford's on that site.
Okay. Enough said. All right, I move we approve it as presented with Polly's recommendation to staff.
Motion by Tim, do I have a second?
I'll second that.
A second by Steve. Any other discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mo. All right, let's go to the minutes first before we go to the next item. Get that out of the way. So let's go to item number 3, approval of the meeting minutes. Let's go to 3A, the May 4th regular planning and zoning meeting. Everybody had a chance to read that. Anybody have any corrections or additions, or anybody ready to approve?
I move we approve the May 4th.
I have a motion by Polly. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Jeff. Any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right. Carried. Let's go to item number 3B, the March 2nd special planning and zoning commission meetings.
I have 2 edits. One on page 10, under item 4, action item A, section 2.1 definitions. Under the motion, it says modify the definition short-term rental B&B on page 17 to read short-term rental primary. It should be residence, not resident. See. And then on page 13, section 7.340 special rear yard regulations, we have that 6 voted for and 2 abstained, but in the context of this section, the abstentions weren't there at that point. We were all there and we were all voting. So when we did front yard, side yard, rear yard, we were all on the dais, so that can't be correct. So might want to go back to the notes to make sure, but there were no abstentions on that. That's it.
Can we approve those then, or do we have to wait for that to be clarified?
You can approve them with those changes as part of the motion.
All right. Okay. Do you want to make
Is that your motion?
Yeah, I move we approve with the edits
As presented?
as presented.
Second.
a motion by Polly, second by Tim? Any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, those have been approved. 3C, February 10th, joint city council and planning and zoning commission meeting minutes. Those have
No
already
edits.
been approved, yeah,
Yeah.
the city. All right,
I move we approve.
motion by Polly. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Jeff. Any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, have those all approved. Then let's go to item number 6, discussion item number A, applications to make requests to place items on P and Z's agenda.
So Regarding this topic, one of the items we've been talking about regarding the roles and responsibilities of the Planning and Zoning Commission is how a commission member could have an agenda item added. So currently, the city council uses a process that requires either the mayor's approval or at least 2 council members requesting an item be added. So just to maintain consistency and to have a starting point, I've passed out, or it's in the packet, a draft agenda item request similar to the council form that is currently used. Don't know if you had a chance to look it over, but it follows everything pretty much the same as the council request. Right now, we have one of the requirements being either the P and Z chair's approval or approval by at least blank. We need to come up with a number of P and Z commission members that would be requesting the item. That would then be submitted to city staff, and city staff would review it along with the city attorney just to make sure it's a topic that's legal to be discussed at this commission. So again, this is just a draft form to start the discussion. If and when the commission finds this to be acceptable, we will need to take it before the city council for approval. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Thanks for getting this together, Gary.
Sure.
And whoever else helped on it. Anybody have any comments on it?
How many additional commissioners do you want? 2, 3? 2 on top of the requester.
Yes.
Yeah, because if you look at the numbers, I'm a number person, I'm sorry.
It's all right.
If you
Go
look
right ahead.
at 2 of the city council is 40%. So 40% of our commission of 9 people would be a 3.6 people.
That's the requester plus 2.
At least.
So just to clarify, that would be 3 total, 2 being other members and 1 being the requesting member?
Right.
Okay. And we'll specify that in that section.
Has the city council 2 plus the requester or 2 total?
Just 2 total, but again, they only have 5 total members.
So this would effectively make it 3.
Yeah.
And that way we don't have anybody worried about a walking quorum trying to get an item on the agenda. We don't want that many. So we want to keep the number low enough but high enough.
Good point.
Sounds good. Will you please put it on the agenda for the next time? Or do I have to get 2 more people to ask?
No. So I guess we will need a motion from y'all to take this on to city council.
Okay.
And then I'll report back next month.
Okay.
Okay, I move that we take this form to city council for approval with item number 2 saying approval by at least 2 planning and zoning commission members, not including requesting commission.
Second.
All right, I have a motion by Polly and a second by Tim to take form with 3 people approving this. Do I have any other discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed? All right. Thanks for your work on that one.
Okay.
All right. That's everything that's on the agenda. Are y'all going to give us a new member next time?
That's the plan. So we've received a number of applications. I think we are planning to discuss that with city council on June 20th. So we hope to have a new member by then.
Very good.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Tim and second by Polly. Any other discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Gonna be a heavy docket.